It was a warm summer night in Nassau Bay, Texas. At the Hilton Hotel, guests came and went, the lobby glowing with soft lights. Outside in the quiet parking lot, a silver Mercedes waited. Its engine hummed, headlights glowing in the dark. Suddenly, the calm was shattered. An argument spilled out of the hotel doors. Emotions running high, a few startled. Witnesses looked on, unsure of what was about to unfold. Then came the sound of screeching tires, and the night took a shocking turn. Just hours earlier, life had seemed picture perfect for Clara and David Harris. A dream marriage, thriving careers, and a beautiful family. But that night, everything changed. And what happened in that parking lot would soon become one of Texas's most infamous crimes. Clara Suarez entered the world on February 3rd, 1958 in Bogota, Colombia. Her early years were marked by both love and loss. When she was only 6 years old, her father passed away, leaving her mother to shoulder the weight of raising the family alone. To provide for her children, Clara's mother spent countless hours sewing clothes for the wealthier families of Bogota, working tirelessly to keep food on the table and to ensure her children never lacked the essentials. Growing up in these circumstances, Clara learned two things very quickly: the value of hard work and a desire to build a better life. Education became her path forward. From a young age, she dedicated herself fully to her studies, determined to rise above the limitations that surrounded her. Her ambitions were clear. Clara wanted a professional career, and more than anything, she longed to move to the United States. Unlike many of her peers, Clara avoided the distractions of parties and fleeting romances. Clara's chosen path led her into dentistry, a profession that would become her calling. She began her studies in Colombia and later pursued greater opportunities abroad. In 1990, her dream took a major step forward when she graduated from Washington University in St. Louis, one of the most prestigious dental schools in the United States. Afterward, she continued her training at the University of Texas School of Dentistry in Houston, where she refined her skills not only as a dentist, but also as an orthodontist. By the early 1990s, Clara's life seemed to be aligning with the vision she had held for so long. She was living in the United States, practicing the career she had once only imagined, and building the stability she had always longed for. Romance, however, was not at the top of her list. She was focused on her work, her patience, and her future. But fate intervened in 1991. While working at Castle Dental Center, Clara crossed paths with another dentist, David Harris. He was just a year older than she was. Born on November 4th, 1957 in Newport, Arkansas, before moving to Texas for his studies. David, like Clara, had excelled academically, graduating second in his class and quickly securing a promising career. Yet behind his professional success was a personal life marked by loss. He was recently divorced and had a daughter, Lindsay, from his first marriage. According to his ex-wife, their marriage had ended largely because David devoted more attention to his career than to his home life. When David asked Clara on a date, she agreed. Both were in their 30s, accomplished in their fields, and ready to start new chapters. Their connection grew quickly, and in less than a year, they were married. On Valentine's Day, February 14th, 1992, the two exchanged vows at the Nassau Bay Hilton Hotel in Houston, Texas. Lindsay, David's daughter, warmed to Clara almost instantly. Clara embraced her role as a stepmother with open arms, treating Lindsay with the same love and care she would her own child. Eventually, when Lindsay moved with her mother to Ohio, David and Clara arranged for joint custody, ensuring that she would still be part of their lives during summers and holidays. Together, Clara and David purchased a beautiful home in Friendswood, Texas. For a time, their lives appeared picture perfect. Clara relished her role as a devoted wife, cooking meals, shopping for her husband, and pouring her energy into their home. David, in return, was affectionate and generous, showering Clara with gifts and attention. Their shared passion for dentistry also grew into a professional collaboration. David realized his dream of opening his own orthodontic practice, Space Center, Orthodontics, in Clear Lake City. The clinic thrived, bringing in nearly $500,000 annually. Clara, equally driven, established her own dental practice under the name Clara L. Harris, specializing in both general dentistry and orthodontics. She quickly gained a loyal patient base and a reputation for professionalism. By all outward appearances, Clara Suarez Harris had achieved exactly what she had longed for since childhood: a prosperous career, a loving family, and the promise of a brighter future in the United States. Their joint success brought financial stability and comfort. Friends and acquaintances who saw them together spoke of their relationship as one of deep affection and mutual respect. 2. Those looking in from the outside, Clara and David embodied the American dream. Hardworking immigrants and professionals who had carved out a prosperous and happy life. They were not only successful, but also seemed genuinely in love. Yet beneath the surface, there were struggles that many couples face. The Harrises dreamed of expanding their family, but starting that chapter was not as easy as they had hoped. Years of medical treatments and financial strain tested their patience and resilience. Finally, in 1998, after much effort and hope, Clara gave birth to twin boys, Brian and Bradley. For both Clara and David, it was the moment they had long prayed for, a dream realized. Clara devoted herself fully to motherhood. She reduced her hours at the dental office to stay home with the twins, managing the household and ensuring her children grew up surrounded by love and security. David often praised her dedication, telling friends and colleagues how lucky he felt to have a wife so committed to both family and their shared vision of success. Together, they hosted family gatherings, birthday parties, and celebrations that drew relatives and friends into their warm household. But life can change quickly. By 2001, cracks began to appear in the perfect image they had worked so hard to create. That year, David made a decision that would alter everything. He hired a new receptionist at his dental clinic, a woman named Gail Bridges. Gail was 39 years old, recently divorced, and raising 3 children of her own. Once married to a wealthy insurance agent named Steve, she had lived a life of comfort and privilege. But her marriage had unraveled with Steve accusing her of cruelty and infidelity, allegations she denied, though the divorce was finalized. In late 2000, following the separation, Gail downsized her lifestyle and sought employment to support herself and her children. At the very moment Gail entered the Harris's world, Clara was busier than ever. Her twins were no longer infants, but raising them still demanded much of her energy. She was working long hours, striving to balance her roles as a mother, wife, and professional. David, who had once cherished her devotion, began to feel neglected as Clara's attention shifted naturally toward the boys. It was in this climate that Gail made her presence felt. Colleagues soon noticed how much attention she gave David. She was striking, confident, and unafraid to blur the line between professional and personal. Rumors swirled through the office corridors, and whispers suggested that her connection with David went beyond work. Eventually, those whispers proved true. In 2002, David invited Gail to what was supposed to be a casual dinner meeting. That dinner became something much more, and an affair began to take shape. The romance between David and Gail escalated quickly, and it wasn't long before others in the clinic could see what was happening. They weren't particularly careful in hiding their relationship, which made those around them deeply uncomfortable, especially because many of them knew Clara. One of David's colleagues, a woman named Diane Sherrill, reached a breaking point after witnessing the two together at the office. After hours, she felt compelled to tell Clara the truth. Clara had harbored suspicions, but hearing it confirmed was devastating. When David finally admitted to the affair, he confessed that he wasn't even sure about his feelings for Gail, for Clara, who had built her entire adult life around the dream of stability and devotion. The revelation was shattering. Her world seemed to collapse. Overnight, heartbroken and humiliated, she reached out to a lawyer to explore the possibility of divorce. But David was not ready to let go. He insisted that he wanted to save their marriage and promised to end his involvement with Gail. Clara, still deeply in love and unwilling to see her family torn apart, laid down strict conditions. The affair had to stop, and they needed to begin marriage counseling together. It was July of 2002. That summer, David's daughter from his first marriage, Lindsay, had come to spend her vacation with them in Houston. At 16, she had been spending time at her father's office, learning about dentistry and nurturing dreams of following in his professional footsteps. But she, too, noticed the interactions between her father and Gail. She eventually decided to tell Clara what others were whispering, that David and Gail were more than co-workers. Clara, shaken but determined, drove to the dental office to face the situation head on. Gail, caught off guard, said little when confronted. Clara allegedly fired her then and there. David, humbled, waited outside as the two women stood face to face. Yet the discovery left Clara restless. She needed answers. She pressed her husband about the affair, desperate to understand why it had happened and what he saw in Gail. David admitted that the relationship was intense, even obsessive, and went so far as to compare his wife and his mistress. On paper, Clara seemed to surpass Gail in education and professional standing, but David revealed that he felt Gail listened to him more and even confessed his preference for her surgically enhanced appearance. The words cut deep. For Clara, who had sacrificed so much for her family, the betrayal was unbearable. But rather than give up, she resolved to fight for her marriage. She threw herself into self-improvement, booking appointments with a hairdresser, a manicurist, even a plastic surgeon, paying deposits for liposuction and breast augmentation. She also adjusted her professional schedule to spend more time with David and the children, trying to address his complaints about feeling neglected. Friends began to notice the change. Clara seemed consumed by the affair, often bringing up Gail's name in conversation. She exercised intensely, refined her appearance, and searched for explanations. She even obtained Gail's phone number, and stories later circulated about her calling Gail directly. Some accounts claim she issued threats, while others suggested she thanked her rival for making her realize how much she valued her marriage. David, meanwhile, confessed his infidelity to his pastor and promised both Clara and his devout parents that he would change. Together, the couple began attending counseling, hoping to repair what had been broken. Still, David proposed one last meeting with Gail, supposedly to end things for good. Clara, torn between suspicion and hope, reluctantly agreed. David said he would meet Gail at a restaurant, but when Clara asked a private investigator to follow him, the truth came out. The detective tracked David not to a casual dinner, but to the Hilton Hotel, the very place where he and Clara had exchanged vows 10 years earlier. There in the restaurant, David was seen with Gail, their interaction more intimate than professional, showing no signs of farewell. The two were later spotted together in the hotel parking lot, speaking for several minutes as if the world around them did not exist. They believed they were hidden from view, unaware that someone was watching. Meanwhile, Clara was unraveling. She drove to the restaurant with Lindsay, desperate for answers. But when they arrived, David and Gail were nowhere to be found. Her frustration mounted. She drove to Gail's home. Again, no trace of her husband. It was then that she called the detective, who revealed the devastating truth. David had rented a room at the Hilton, the same hotel where he and Clara had celebrated their marriage. The betrayal, so public and so cruel, ignited something deep inside Clara. Fueled by rage, humiliation, and heartbreak, she sped toward the Hilton. In the lobby, she searched frantically for her husband, but he was not there. Clinging to hope, she urged Lindsay to call her father, telling him that one of the twins was ill and that he needed to return home immediately. David agreed. Clara rushed to the hotel. In the lobby, she waited. Then the elevator door slid open. David appeared holding Gail's hand. In that instant, the image of the perfect marriage shattered completely. Overcome by fury and heartbreak, Clara lashed out, pulling Gail's hair and striking her as witnesses looked on in shock. Hotel staff quickly intervened, separating the two women and escorting them outside. As they were led from the lobby, another painful scene unfolded. Lindsay, distraught and overwhelmed by her father's betrayal, lashed out at him in anger. Witnesses recalled her striking him, unable to contain her emotions. David, however, did not return to Clara. Instead, he chose to stay with Gail, leaving his wife and daughter to walk out alone into the night. But for Clara, the confrontation was far from finished. She believed that David and Gail would leave the Hilton together. So she and Lindsay waited in her Mercedes-Benz parked near Gail's car in the hotel lot. Before long, their suspicions were confirmed. David and Gail appeared, walking hand in hand toward Gail's vehicle. What followed would become one of the most shocking scenes in Texas crime history. Witnesses testified that Clara started her car, pressed the accelerator, and drove straight toward the couple. The vehicle struck David, throwing him onto the pavement, but Clara did not stop. Instead, she circled the parking lot, accelerating again and again, running over him multiple times as Lindsay sat in the passenger seat, screaming for her to stop. David Harris died instantly from multiple blunt force injuries. The entire incident was captured on videotape by the private investigator, who was still documenting David's movements for Clara. That footage, along with the revelations of the affair and the violent confrontation, became central pieces of evidence in the trial that followed. When the car finally came to a halt, Lindsay scrambled out, distraught and crying. Clara stepped out moments later, her face strewn with tears. Witnesses described her as overwhelmed, as if she herself could not believe what had just occurred. She collapsed beside her husband's body, sobbing and calling out in anguish. Unlike many others who commit such acts in anger, Clara did not attempt to flee. She remained at the scene until police officers arrived and placed her under arrest. The case shocked Houston and quickly gained national attention. The leaked footage from the hotel parking lot brought the tragedy into living rooms across the country. To the public, Clara's story seemed to be one of a devoted wife undone by betrayal, a woman who had tried everything to save her marriage only to lose herself in a single night of rage. In 2003, her trial began. Clara's defense centered on the claim of sudden passion, arguing that her actions were not premeditated, but rather the result of overwhelming emotional pain upon seeing her husband's infidelity with her own eyes. The prosecution, however, painted a different picture. They pointed to the fact that Clara had brought her car to the hotel, had followed David and Gail, and had struck him repeatedly, suggesting deliberate intent rather than a momentary lapse. After weeks of testimony, the jury delivered its verdict. Clara Harris was guilty of murder. In 2004, she was sentenced to 20 years in prison. The verdict devastated everyone connected to the family. David's parents, Gerald and Mildred Harris, initially expressed sympathy and even stood by their daughter-in-law during the trial. But their relationship with Clara deteriorated when she chose to leave her twin boys in the care of family friends and relatives instead of allowing the grandparents to raise them. The decision left the Harrises heartbroken, feeling as though they had lost not only their son, but also their bond with their grandchildren. At the time of David's death, Brian and Bradley were just 4 years old. Shielded from the public eye, they grew up in the shadow of tragedy, their lives forever altered by the events of that night. As for Lindsay, the young girl who had witnessed everything, the scars ran deep. She struggled with feelings of anger and abandonment, particularly after her grandparents continued to support Clara despite her father's death. In later years, she expressed her pain openly, questioning why her grandparents seemed to take the side of the woman who had killed her father. After serving 15 years of her 20-year sentence, Clara was released on May 11, 2018. She lived under parole restrictions until February 10, 2023, when her supervision officially ended. David Harris, once known as a dedicated dentist and loving father, lost his life in a way that was as brutal as it was shocking. His affair with Gail Bridges shattered the very foundation of his marriage, but no one could have foreseen the violence that would follow. The case of Clara and David Harris remains one of Texas's most infamous tragedies, a story of love, betrayal, rage, and irreversible choices that left an entire family fractured forever. Music, thanks for tuning in to Crime Scene Stories. If you're intrigued by mysteries from around the world, subscribe and click notification bell. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations.